Located in southern New Hampshire, just north of Boston, Massachusetts, New Boston, New Hampshire is known for its unique landscapes and cool breezes. During the 1800s, these features would draw the attention of many visitors looking to get away from the bustling city. From Joe English Hill in the east to Frog Rock in the west, New Boston quickly made a name for itself. A murder mystery on Joe English Hill, a visit from a presidential candidate, a fire that would decimate the entire town, all make the history of New Boston one of the most interesting in the nation. First settled in 1735 by a man named Thomas Smith, he built a cabin near the Piscataquag River, but soon found that the Indian residents were not as friendly as he had hoped. Within a year, he had returned to his home in Chester, New Hampshire. A year later, a grant was issued by the King's Court, and New Boston was born. A big part of New Boston's history is the general store. It started in a red brick building in the 1800s owned by Clarence Dodge. A competitor store owned by Solomon Atwood burned in the 1887 town-wide fire. J.R. Whipple bought the land where the store had stood and rebuilt a store which Atwood had operated until 1915. Clarence Dodge then moved his business to Atwood's store, and it was operated by many generations of the Dodge family until 1995 when Mike Danziger bought the store. He renovated it and operated it until 2011, where it was sold at auction to a New Boston family, where it was then reopened on January 11, 2012, where it still operates today. New Boston has many businesses that run through the town. Some have been reestablished and others are still up and running. Another family-owned shop was Andy's Tavern, owned by Andy and Charlotte Bellinger. During Ronald Reagan's 1980 presidential campaign, he visited Andy's Taverns. Later on, a White House chef tore down the drive-in restaurant and built a full-scale restaurant in its place. During the hot months, families from New Boston would travel up to the southern parts of New Hampshire to enjoy the open air and cool breezes. When people traveled to New Boston, there was only one hotel, the Tavern, so people would spend their time in boarding houses. Summit Farm was a very popular boarding house due to the fact that it could hold up to 35 guests at a time, and at this time, guests only paid $1 per day to stay in these rooms. There are many things that bring tourists to the small town of New Boston, but one of the most popular is a giant granite boulder in the shape of a frog. Frog Rock is located in the southwest corner of New Boston off an old logging road. Frog Rock has been a popular tourist destination for many years. Tourists come here to pose next to the oddity. Some see the shape, while others are still a little more skeptical. There is another large rock formation that can be found on the town's southern end. Joe English Hill starts at McCurdy Road and continues up over 1,200 feet to its summit. In 1854, Joe English Hill became the location of one of the town's deepest mysteries. 17-year-old Sevilla Jones was killed by Henry Sargent. Legend states that Sevilla and Henry were a couple, but when Sevilla's mother found out about the relationship, she turned Sevilla against Henry and jealousy began to set in. While on their way to school, with her 15-year-old brother watching, Henry shot Sevilla 4 times with an Allen & Thuger pepper-box revolver, killing her instantly and then shooting himself. The self-inflicted gunshot wound did not immediately kill Henry, and a doctor was supposedly called on site, but was so angry with Henry that he refused to treat him and let him pass. There is a small gravestone located on Cemetery Hill overlooking the Piscataquag River with Sevilla's name that outlined the events of that fateful day. On May 11, 1887, a terrible fire broke out in the town of New Boston. A fire that started from a spark at Abram Watson's steam mill. The fire roared through the town, burning down almost 40 buildings. The fire spread so quickly through the town that when the firefighters arrived, there was no use for them. In just 1 hour, the town hall, school, fire station, Baptist and Presbyterian churches, Atwood's general store, where Dodge's store now stands, a blacksmith shop, and several homes, including Watson's, were destroyed. Although the steam mill which started the fire stood untouched. Watson was encouraged to leave the town promptly, where later his mill was bought by J.R. Whipple, who tore it down. The Piscataquag. Home to the first settlers in New Boston, is a 63-mile-long waterway that runs through many New Hampshire towns, including New Boston. The Piscataquag River provided essential resources for these early inhabitants. In the late 1700s and into the 1800s, the primary use of the river was a source of power for numerous mills and shops. The lower segment of the Piscataquag was an important link in the transportation of cargo around Manchester. Dam locks were built at the river's mouth in 1818 to facilitate boat passage to and from the Merrimack River. The land which is now New Boston was inhabited by Native Americans for many centuries. Chester Price wrote in Historic Indian Trails of New Hampshire about the Piscataquag. He translated Piscataquag as, "to the place of the dark river." New Boston may not be a very big or well-known town, but it is a town of scenic views and great history. From the beautiful running Piscataquag River to the views seen on Joe English Hill, New Boston's fall foliage and spring blooms are views people all around the state come to see. Sevilla Jones is a story no one will forget, while Abram Wobson's is a story everyone would like to forget. New Boston's story and scenic views are sure never to be forgotten.